What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. Today, I am back. I am back from all of the madness. I had a crazy October. It's been nuts. I haven't been able to be fully present. I'm sure I've made all sorts of errors here and there. We'll talk about a few of them, but not too many because I have an ego and it matters to me. But before we do any of that, let me just say I got a ton of stuff coming, and I have big news announcements regarding pre-orders for blankets and stuff for Christmas. It's going to be next week, I believe. So please tune into that. I'm just trying to finalize some of the details. Patreon, your situation is going to be totally different. You're going to have full access to everything. For the Gym Pop, there's going to be a certain amount of stuff that I'm going to offer for you guys to be able to get in on a pre-order, with the end goal being that everything will be available for you for Christmas. It's going to be blankets. I don't want to speak too much because I don't know exactly what I can commit to quite yet. Real quick, only one little bit of house cleaning that we have to do, and that's on the firmament. Apparently, there was some articulation errors that I got. The truth is I'm dealing with a toy that doesn't belong to me. The last thing I want to do is break something that doesn't belong to me. I give it a fair amount of force, as you can normally see. So if you already know the joint moves, then take away my criticism that the joint is not there and add in a new criticism of mine and that the joint is piss poorly toleranced. Either way, it's a strike against the figure, but accuracy is accuracy and it does count. So forgive those. One of them in particular was the jaw on the bird, apparently. Look, I gave it the full college try. I don't know what else to tell you. If the articulation's built in there, then that's good. However, the fact that it's built in there and I can't access it says something about the build of the toy. And with that being said, I think we can get into this. There's a lot I want to get into. I didn't know which to choose. I want to talk about this KFC Magnus. I'm gonna talk about it, not about the figure. I don't care much about the figure. What I do care about is the timing of the rollout. That's the stuff that I usually clamp onto. I'm very excited to talk about it. I just didn't want to do it this week because I wanted to get this legacy stuff kind of out of the way. But trust me, I have opinions about this Ultra Magnus. Not about how it looks or anything like that, about how it was rolled out, how it was revealed. Timing is everything. I've heard of coincidences. I just never actually seen one for myself. Let's move on. So this Legacy line was announced, right? Which is going to be the next movement forward for the Transformers from Hasbro. It was announced near the time of the third-party announcements, which I also find to be pretty interesting. Coincidences, right? And they gave us a number of reveals. We got skids, we got drag strip, we got a lot. We're going to talk about a few. And without spoilers, I gotta say, I was underwhelmed. I don't know if you guys felt the same way. There was a lot of people that are hitting me up like, oh, I know you're going to be excited. They're doing another Stunticon set. I would be excited if it didn't look like this. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to talk about it. I think that Hasbro done some pretty great stuff here recently. I'm just not sure that these are any of them. So let's talk about the figures, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the line, because I feel differently about the line than I do about the figures. So let's go. So we'll start with skids. And I swear, man, you give them an inch and they take a mile. Or I start to build them up and they make me want to tear them all the way back down. Every single advancement that I feel like I've seen with Hasbro's Transformers is undone with a lot of these figures. But let's look at the legs on this unit. I've been praising them for their lack of hollowness, for their lack of what we call waffles. Shout out to Dust. And what we see here is it back in full force. It's just unsightly. The upper body looks okay and actually looks kind of on par with what they've been doing quality-wise recently, but the lower body just throws it away. Hate to see it. The alt mode works, but there are a lot of things that I see with these alt modes that tend to be issues across the board, but I'll point it out in a more obvious example later on, which is going to be relatively soon. So let's move into drag strip. Hate it. Hate every single thing about it. Can't stand it. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but every stripe that I've given them over the past couple years with what they've done with a lot of these trilogies, from Power of the Primes kind of moving forward, is just seemingly undone. This seems like a callback to the Combiner Wars era. I hate the shoulder look with the front of the car sitting up there like a squirrel on a wooden fence. I hate seeing the engineering inside the knees. I don't like the proportions. I don't like how broad the chest is, how skinny the thighs are. But moving into the alt mode is when we look at a lot of the kind of more relevant issues that I've been talking about. And that is back to these pinned wheels with tension pegs. It is so ugly and unsightly. It makes it look like a toy. And that's kind of my issue with these. Now, obviously, they are toys, right? We're not fooling anyone here. But
These look painfully like toys. Like these look like children should be playing with them. But as we've already discussed in previous videos, that's not the target market for this. Now, RC on the other hand, we'll start with her alt mode, much better. The wheels look more purposeful for one. The alt mode looks more put together. It looks kind of true to form. And I actually think that her robot mode isn't terrible, minus the wheels on the legs. The only issue with this is we know how good they can kind of make an RC look. Not to say that this RC was perfect. It wasn't. But in comparison to this RC, it's just like, what are we doing aside from moving backwards? Only a factor in moving us backwards. Kickback, I think, is actually one of the stronger releases, and probably because it doesn't have to turn into a vehicle, and the alt mode is more, I don't know. I mean, it's a bug, and I get it. It works, but it's also kind of suggestive in a way, or at the very least, easier to pull off. And as a result, the robot mode translates a bit better. I actually think this is pretty solid. I hate the forearm break for the bug mode arms, how the whole half of the forearm looks like it just doesn't clean up well. But other than that, it does the trick. But the truth is, it doesn't have to do many tricks, right, to kind of pull this off. So, but at least they did it. And while we stay on the topic of positivity, I dig the bulkhead. I think it's a clever move. We'll talk about it here in a minute as to why, but I think that overall this looks good. Still got the hollowness inside the thighs. Don't think I don't see it. I do. But I think overall it's a more put together figure. It's also a bigger figure, which makes the hollowness a bit less excusable. But whereas a lot of the issues, and I'm even looking at the insides of the biceps now. Maybe I hate this too. I can't tell. I think I hate it all. But for some reason, at first glance, this figure doesn't seem as offensive to me as a lot of the others. I'm guessing that's going to be that spirally plastic in alt mode for the back of the vehicle that's meant to look like a tarp. I doubt that's going to be any kind of like fabric like paint applied to it. And the wheels look cheap again. And then we get this other Prime, which is fine and honestly looks better than probably the rest of them. It's just not my favorite design. However, at least the alt mode looks more put together. The alt mode looks more purposeful, and the alt mode doesn't suffer from the wheel clips like the rest of them. Once again, this probably plays into the budget of a higher price point for the figure, but regardless, it still looks good and looks better, and therefore needs to be treated with a bit more respect, perhaps.
So yeesh, looks real rough to me for the forthcoming future, I guess I should say. It doesn't look good to me. Like, I think a lot of stuff they've been doing recently has been like really, really in the right direction. Even if it was a misstep, the misstep has seemed to be in the right direction. These seem like the same stuff that I used to pick apart for them being a trash company. Not good. Not good, especially when they've been on such an upward swing. I'm not sure why, and maybe they've talked about it, but I'm not sure why this seems like such a departure, such a step down, such a step backward. The only thing I can think of would be budget cuts, and budget cuts come from poor performance, but I'm not sure that they've had that. So it's kind of interesting to look at. But let me tell you what I do like, because I don't like to end on the negative. I like to end on positive. The legacy aspect, right, is what they're trying to do here is kind of slam together all of the different sort of Transformer universes that we've seen throughout the years, right? Seemingly Armada, G1, of course, because that's always the bread and butter. Beast Wars, I would imagine, is going to be in there as well. We just saw the Ravage recently, and I know that's not technically the same line, but, we saw a lot of stuff from Kingdom, so my guess is it's all kind of trying to be funneled into this. Animated, Prime, etc., and smashing them into kind of one new look at the universe, right? But it's all compiled. It's like Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? It's like they've brought them all into one universe, and as if they're all kind of existing in the same space. And I think that's brilliant. IDW has kind of done it in the past, where they've had like iterations of Beast Wars characters like just walking around in the same kind of G1 universe, as it were. And it works. It's smart. It's clever. And for G1 guys like myself, and for some of you guys out there who I've also heard feedback from, it makes you attach yourself differently to characters that normally you wouldn't necessarily care about. And maybe that's not going to work so well for Beast Wars because it is such a different looking thing. But I think the character like Bulkhead, which is just the most obvious example, but not the only example, is going to be such a shoehorn into those people that are already kind of more biased or more forgiving of vehicle to robot Transformers. And what I think they'll end up doing is creating a whole new fan base for characters who may not have necessarily been cared for before from a specific demographic that they already know is their bread and butter. And for me, I think that's just brilliant. I hope that they bring in some of the IDW stuff as well. I know a lot of mainline collectors would love to see a DJD, stuff like that. Like, I think that would be cool. I think that opening the doors this way is a very smart idea on their part, and I think it's long overdue. I think that anybody with a half a sense could have directed them this way years ago. I think that this kind of stuff would work in third party. to an extent. But I've had videos on this channel before where I'm like, look, you take a character like Tarn or Drift that already kind of has this like cult following in IDW, you give it a kind of reimagined G1 look, you're going to get a lot of G1 fans to hop on board. So I think that that's extremely clever, and I think it's extremely bright. I would just like the shine of the thought to match the shine of the figure, and right now it doesn't look that way to me. But who knows? It's still probably a good ways off, although these look like finished pieces to me. And I feel like for promotional images, they always look better than what you actually get anyway, so I would imagine that what I'm going to get is even worse, but I'm not going to get them anyway, so what am I worried about? I'm worried about you guys, as always. So yeah, I just wanted to touch base on that. I just got back in town Wednesday evening, so I've been kind of scrambling. I got the dummies up, and then I got this up to kind of ease back into everything. I've had a nice vacation. I know you're worried about me, but I'm back. I'm ready to work. I'm ready to get some stuff done. There's stuff I want to talk about. That Magnus is one. There's a Zeta Toys conversation I want to have. I want to have a conversation about shipping. There's a lot of stuff that I have coming. I just can't do it all in one day. So this week is Legacy. Next week, I think, is Ultra Magnus. We'll talk then. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.